Good morning. So what is this series exactly? Well, after my dozen or so times of playing through the Pirate101 story, I realized I haven't really ever read the dialogue. Sure, I know major plot points, but I was never enriched by all the dialogue and story this game has to offer. So that is what we're doing today, and for the next few months. I started a new privateer with the explicit purpose to read all the dialogue of the main story and truly learn why it is what we do. Sit back, relax, as we head into the story of Pirate101, experiencing the nuances you may have overlooked, and endure potential side rants about the relevance to today's world. If you like this format, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking to show me you're enthralled by the Pirate101 story like I've been. Without further ado, let's sit by the fire and get started. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the I Started a Privateer to read all the dialogue in Pirate101 series. We'll be going over book 7 today, which, looking at my notes here, it's a pretty long book. I think this is the first long book that we have, maybe besides the first book, but it's definitely the longest. So we're gonna take a moment to get through all of this stuff and all the nooks and crannies of the dialogue in this book. And as you can notice, my lights are off, so I've got some pretty cozy vibes, so you'll definitely notice the color change on my face a lot as we go through the world. We start book 7 off by speaking to this guy, as we were told to find him by Don Rodrigo / El Toro, spoilers by the way, in the end of book 6, who tells us that we can find Tonka, who was the companion of the other El Toro, the older El Toro, Don Rodrigo's father. And Eagle Caller here tells us that Tonka is currently with a masked bird called the Free Ranger on a white ship in Cooper's Roost Skyway. And that is probably our best lead. So as you can see on the map here, that is the white ship there with the Free Ranger. But the problem is when we go over there, we actually will see that there are Darkmoor ships fighting it. And that's the sort of ambush that we come upon once we find that ship. And there's these Darkmoor ships fighting it once we board the White Stallion. Once we get over there. So now that we're actually coming up on the white ship, we see these Darkmoor ships. And what's interesting is their banner, their flag there has a little duck on it. And that's the perpetrator we see once we get onto the ship. Upon boarding the white Silver Stallion ship, we come across this guy, English Bill, the Duck of Death, and these little pink fires around, and then we see, I don't think you can see it now, but that little green smoky thing is where the Free Ranger is actually at. So English Bill has the speech where he says that he cursed the Free Ranger, and then he escapes and runs away as he ambushes us with those lagoons, and we have to, quench those fires, beat the fight, and then we're left with just the Free Ranger who is poisoned and cursed. Once we talk to the Free Ranger, he tells us that Tonka was taken hostage by English Bill and that Free Ranger needs the help of the elders back in the village. And while all this is going on, Old Scratch actually tells us that English Bill had some powerful mojo, and the curse that he cast upon the Free Ranger was some dark, powerful mojo that only the Bison and Eagle village could rectify. It's back in the village where we speak to Dancing Stars, who gives us kind of like a grocery list of everything we need. And it's not really that important, but I'll just read what we need. There is mandrake root, bloodbat teeth, and then sun pollen, and these are all in different skyways in Cool Ranch, so we have to go get all that stuff and then we come back. Once we return the grocery list and our groceries back to Dancing Stars, he makes this potion, this concoction, gives it to the Free Ranger, and he basically looks like this now, so there's no more green smoke, but he's not quite at 100%. He still needs to recover, and Dancing Stars recognizes that English Bill the Duck of Death is a very powerful entity, and we don't know anything about him, so he suggests that we should go to the top of Elder Bluff and invoke the totems there on the top and see if we can learn anything about this English Bill guy. So it is on top of Elder Bluff here where we invoke the totems and summon Thunderbird, this great big blue bird who tells us that the Bison tribe down there and in the Elder Village actually angered the spirits. And in order to learn what we need to know about English Bill, we need to sort of fix that situation and appease the spirits and make them not angry anymore. And Thunderbird leaves it to Sundancer to tell us what exactly happened to anger these spirits. So we speak to Sundancer, who kind of gives us the rundown of the situation of what happened to make the spirits all angry. And he tells us that they had a member named Three Scars who found the totems of the three spirits, which is Sister Snake, Brother Owl, and Brother Wolf. And he used their blessings, each of them, to essentially do evil. He betrayed their blessings, and in order to change the situation, fix it all, I need to find the three totems and appease all three spirits. And the first one is with the Red Sash Gang. It was stolen from the tribespeople here, and so that is our first lead. And also for this one, we need scorpion rattles from their tails in order to summon this first spirit. So it is on top of this hill in Gold Creek, where usually he's right here, but since I'm done with the quest line, of course he's gone. We summon Brother Owl, the first spirit, who tells us that Three Scars used his blessing to get a headdress, and he used this for evil. The headdress was destroyed, and we need to make a new one out of beads from the Blackstorm Raiders, which is the tribe of Three Scars after he was exiled or defected from the original tribe, and then also owl feathers from the Queen Hornet that resides down in the lake, or down in the creek, I should say, below there. And after returning with the grocery list of items, Brother Owl makes a new headdress, and we are able to return to Elder Village, and we are done with the first spirit. Pretty easy. I'll talk about the next one since we're next to the Sky Snakes right here. The next spirit we have to appease is Sister Snake, who is angry at Three Scars because Three Scars turned her son into a snake. And the first thing we have to do, so like the Rattler for Brother Owl, we need to get a perfect Sky Snake egg for Sister Snake to summon her. And all we need to do to appease Sister Snake is to get the fangs of her son. We get those fangs, we return to her back on Isla de la Muerte in Centopoyo, and then we can return to the Elder Village and get the third and final spirit to appease. The final spirit is Brother Wolf, who is a mighty hunter, and in order to prove ourselves, so like the Rattler for Owl and the egg for Snake, we need to face and get the meat of the 4 striped buffaloons here in the Skyway. And this is the coveted striped buffaloon quest because you only get 1 per battle, and it's a pretty hard quest. It's not the worst, but it definitely is fairly difficult. And then once we get the 4, these are bumbaloons, sorry, not buffaloons. Once we get the meat for the 4 bumbaloons, we go to Scorpion Rock, that island all the way over there, and we can summon the final spirit. It is here on Scorpion Rock where we summon the final spirit, Brother Wolf, who I can actually see, surprisingly. That's awesome. But Brother Wolf, the issue here is it's the most complex, it's the longest. And basically what happened is Brother Wolf blessed someone at birth. And this person was killed by Three Scars using venom from Sister Snake. And this venom is so potent that it blinded the ghost of the person that Brother Wolf blessed. So this person is essentially trapped because they can't see. And naturally, the issue that he wants resolved is to unblind her ghost and let her rest peacefully. Our first step is to speak to Sister Snake on the Isla de la Muerte, once again, who tells us that the ingredients for the curing balm is grumwort and ghost tears. And Scratch suggests that our best step is to speak to Vidima back on Skull Island to try and get these 2 coveted items. So we talk to Vidima, who tells us that she can get the grumwort while we go get the ghost tears on the Isle of Doom. We go all the way to the Isle of Doom, we get the ghost tears and come back, and she obviously in Pirate 101 she doesn't have the grumwort, but she tells us where we can find it, and that is with the Frog Father back in Jonatown, as he has the monopoly on the whole grumwort market. We talk to the Frog Father once again, and he tells us that it's actually kind of a coincidence that we come to him with grumwort issues, as his partner on the grumwort market, Joey Caro, took control of the supply and kind of fled from the operation. And so Frog Father gives us a little nudge. He's like, if you convince him the error of his ways, or if you just kill him and you get me my grumwort back, I'll give you some and you can be on your way. And of course that's what we do. We find Joey on, I believe it's Flotsam. We find him, convince him that he's doing a bad thing. He's making a really bad decision, messing with the Frog Father. And he's like, all right, I understand. You're right. Here's the grumwort. and we return the Frogfather with his monopoly back in his hand, and then we are able to take our Grumwort back to Sister Snake, who makes the bomb to give to Brother Wolf. After pouring the bomb on the grave of the person that Three Scars killed, that Brother Wolf blessed, we speak to Brother Wolf, who tells us that we're not quite done yet, and we need to destroy the Black Raiders, the Blackstorm Raiders, and kill Three Scars, and that will finalize his appeasement. So we do all that, and we actually get a Blackstorm Raider to join us, as he's seen the error of the ways of Three Scars. And now with all this in mind, the three spirits pleased, the Three Scars is done, he can't harm anyone else. We go back to Elder Bluff, and we invoke the Thunderbird once again. After invoking the Thunderbird once again, the spirits pleased, she tells us the story of English Bill, the Duck of Death. And luckily, there is a puppet show for this. So let us go ahead. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Let us go and learn the story of the Duck of Death.
The great birds came to our skies from back east to make a new life here. Among them was William the Duck, who helped build their Cooper's Roost. William came to these skies seeking riches, but found little. He hoped to change that when another people followed the birds here, the dogs. The dogs brought with them their great engines and rails. Hungry for gold, they needed vast swaths of land for their constructs and their mines. William Duck won the lands for them. He led the soldiers who drove the bison from the Great Rock and forced his fellow birds from their farms. William took the dog's ways as his own, and was then known as English Bill. The dogs promised Bill great power and wealth, but he was deceived. The dogs spoke wicked lies. When the great engine of the dogs, named for the west wind, exploded, the dogs broke all their treaties with Bill. English Bill was left with nothing. He had sold his birthright for a pittance, and learned the Zephyr engine had been built by liars and thieves. Rage consumed him. Bill bought a brace of pistols and took revenge on the traitors and engine builders who cheated him. The dogs grew angry. Hunters from all corners of the spiral came to make English Bill suffer for his crimes. He fled to the world of shadows, the skies of Darkmoor. Bill found an evil spirit there from the before time, when there was no spiral. He sold his soul to it for the power to take his vengeance. English Bill is no more. All that remains is the Duck of Death, immortal, evil, and invulnerable to all harm. All but one. Silver is pure and shines even in darkness. Evil spirits fear it. Only blessed silver can harm him now. You will need silver bullets.
So that is the story of English Bill, and what we need is silver, and we also need a blessing. Also, it's pretty crazy that they just the puppet show had a mass shooting in it. That's crazy. English Bill bought some pistols, went into the tavern, and just started blasting everybody. That's a pretty dark thing to have in this game. I didn't really realize it as a kid, but yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then he sold his soul to this ancient spirit to be invulnerable to everything except for silver. But yeah. And it's not shown in the puppet show, but the dialogue after the puppet show, Thunderbird tells us that English Bill resides in Boot Hill, as we can see all the way over there. So that's where he's at, but we cannot get to him first. What we need is silver, and we must speak to the bison. So we speak to Silverhorn, who I don't know if it's a coincidence or it was purposeful that silver's in their name, but he tells us that the birds of Cooper's Roost actually dug up all of the silver. So our best shot will be at Cooper's Roost, and Bonnie Ann says that she remembers a cave back in Cooper's Roost, so that's where we're gonna go. Also, something I just realized, in the Thunderbird puppet show, there was a bounty hunter guy that looked like Dengar from Star Wars. I'll put that up on the screen, but I thought that was funny. That was my first time noticing that. But after entering the cave, we speak to Bat Masterson, who's the foreman of the mine, and he tells us that he'll give us all the silver we need if we could just clear out the cave, this cave behind him that's filled with blood bats. And while we're clearing these out from the blood bats, a chicken miner, not this one specifically, but one like him, thinks that we're there to take all the silver and all the resources that they're mining, and he ambushes us, and now we have the chicken miners on our back as well. And then we learn after beating him that he wanted the silver for himself. So we did Bat Masterson a favor there. We're not just killing his workers. He was trying to steal the profits. And so we exit the cave. We tell Bat Masterson that we freed all the blood bats. They shouldn't be in there no more. And then he gives us the silver we need. And naturally, we can't just use raw silver as a bullet. We need to get them forged and made into bullets, which is what this guy over here does for us. We give him the silver, Smitty here, we give him the silver, he smelts it down into bullets, and then we're off to the Free Ranger, and then English Bill. After clearing some more of these Darkmoor ships here, we land at Boot Hill with silver bullets and Free Ranger in hand, and we're ready to confront English Bill, the Duck of Death, for the final time. The scene that we come across is pretty surprising, to be honest. We see that English Bill, the Duck of Death, is working with none other than Deacon, the Armada. The Armada has their hands in every pie, working with Santa Rana and Santa Pollo, and working with English Bill and Big Sky. I'm not going to show the full fight, but we do fight him here, and after we fight him, this is it. We use the basin to bless our bullets because we cannot forget about that fact. But once we finish the fight, English Bill concedes and he runs away to his ship. So this, I actually lied, this isn't the final time we fight him. That was a purposeful deceit. But the final time we fight him is on the ship, which I will show after this. Let's see if we get a drop here, actually. Nope, just a pan-fried banana. So as we see here, English Bill, he runs away to his ship, or actually portals away to his ship. But luckily there is a small little dinghy there we can use to get to his ship. And then once we fight him here, the threat is over, and we can return to Tonka to learn more about the original El Toro. Alright, let's see if we get a drop from this one. So this is unrelated to the story part, but there is 3 different instances where you can get English Bill's loot. And I've got nothing. It's on the ship, it's back here, and then it's also the first time you see him in the Silver Stallion. So with the conflict resolved, we speak to Tonka, who tells us that English Bill was hoping to use Mojo to speak to Don Rafael, El Toro's father's ghost, or the original El Toro. And coincidentally, this was going to be done in the mausoleum that is below Boot Hill here. I also don't know why I'm invincible, but we can quickly walk over to the mausoleum and continue with the next part. So we head into the mausoleum, we collect some items from Don Rafael's various chests, and we bring him out here, and Old Scratch does like what he did with Captain Gunn and summons the spirit to come forth and speak to us. And it's here that Rafael admits that he did something awful that he regrets in life, and that is when he adopted Don Rodrigo, the current El Toro. He also had his own daughter Carolina, and while he was teaching El Toro the ways of El Toro, he denied Carolina the opportunity to learn any of these feats and strategy and combat that he was teaching Don Rodrigo, the current El Toro. And during this time, Carolina and Don Rodrigo fell in love, and Don Rodrigo started to teach Carolina on their own time the things that Don Rafael was teaching Don Rodrigo. Through time, the current El Toro, Don Rodrigo, proposed to Carolina and wanted Don Rafael's blessing, and Rafael denied, said no, and kind of excluded himself from their lives and went away. Now, in order to get information about Captain Blood, Rafael asks that we return Carolina to Cool Ranch, as after that day, she stepped out of Cool Ranch and never returned. During all this, Tonka says that he actually knows where Carolina is, as he was there that day that everything went down. He tells us that he and his friends helped Carolina get to Skull Island, where she used her mastery of the sword and donned the name Mustang Sally. And also on a privateer, if you're caring about the privateer part, privateers recruit Tonka, which is pretty interesting. He's not the greatest companion, but it is kind of cool to have him as a story companion. And Raphael tells us that we need a signet, this wedding ring, this proposal ring, in order for Carolina to know that we are there with Don Raphael's word and on his blessing to return her to Santo Pollo. Upon getting the ring, we return to Skull Island and we speak to One-Eyed Jack in Flotsam. And that is actually where this book ends. It ends leading into what is Port Regal and that whole arc. But yeah, that's the end of Cool Ranch Part 1. It covers 2 books. This book was pretty long. Looking at my recording, it's been about 50 minutes. I don't know what it'll get cut down to, but yeah. I mean, I think this is probably one of my favorite books so far. Working with the spirits and working to combat English Bill is a really interesting story, and it's a very dark story that Pirate 101 sort of presents. But yeah, I will see you next time for Book 8.